This is Dr. Gerald Thompson once again on a Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. It's wonderful to be here this evening. And this is Your Health Matters. I want to thank Kamal for sharing the numbers. We don't often do it, 4579997, whether it's WhatsApp or whether it's a straight call. Give us a call and interact with us. Share your thoughts, share your ideas, ask a question on the topic of the day or any other topic that may be maybe of concern to you. This evening, I want to talk about a subject I've spoken about many times before, but big subjects need to be spoken many times. And this year, there was an article in one of the important journals called The Lancet. You heard of New England Journal of Medicine, you heard of The Lancet, but this article had come out actually 2 years ago, but it's been taken up by the World Health Organization because this study reported in The Lancet showed that 1 in 8 people around the world are now living with obesity. 1 in 8. We know already that the globe, the world, the population of the earth is just over 8 billion people. And what that means is that 1 billion people are living with obesity. Now, this is important because what it has shown is that since 1990, 1989 was the year I went into private practice in New York. And they've said that obesity has doubled since 1990. In other words, over the last 35 years, 34, 35 years. What's worse, childhood obesity has tripled. Childhood obesity has tripled. If I show you a picture of Kamal, Kamal is looking all slim and thin. I am slim and trim myself. Well, I put it on a little bit in truth. I'm not telling you the truth. I put it on a little bit. But I'm not yet obese. I am considered to be in the overweight stage. And I'll come to that in a minute. But, that study, it shows that 43% of adults, in other words, 4 out of every 10 adults are overweight. 4 out of every 10 adults are overweight. Now, I'm going to get into some details as regards what is the difference between obesity and overweight, But this is really stunning. And it is slightly different in different parts of the world, And let me just get this fixed here. Now, the study also shows that even though the rates of undernutrition has dropped, undernutrition, it is still a public health challenge in many places, especially what they call sub-Saharan Africa. That is Ethiopia, Congo, all those kind of countries in sub-Saharan Africa and also in Southeast Asia. Now, long ago, when we heard of the term malnutrition, we always thought malnutrition was just persons who were not getting enough food, persons who were undernourished as malnutrition. But malnutrition not only includes people who are undernourished and who've lost weight, but also people who've put on weight, who are overweight and who are obese. So malnutrition is a much broader topic. Mal, that means bad. Nutrition, malnutrition, bad nutrition includes those persons who are undernourished as well as those persons who are overweight and, let's say, overnourished. You know? Now, the countries with the highest compounded rates of both types, that is, wasting, stunted growth, underweight, inadequate vitamins or minerals, and then overweight and obesity. Let me start it again. So those countries that have a combined picture of malnutrition, that is undernutrition, that is wasting, stunted growth, underweight, and then also inadequate vitamins and minerals, but also in those countries that include being overweight as well as obese, these countries include those of the Pacific, the Caribbean, the Middle East, and North Africa. The Caribbean has found itself in that grouping. So Africa and certain parts of Southeast Asia are areas where there is still a certain amount of undernourishment. People who are really having problems finding food because they're in war zones or floods or droughts, can't find food, crop failures. But there are other countries that have a combination of undernourishment and obesity at the same time. And that includes undernourishment, stunted growth, lack of vitamins, as well as overweight and obesity. Let's just look at what. Now, for adults, the World Health Organization defines overweight and obesity as follows. Overweight is a test we call a BMI, a calculation we call a BMI that is greater than or equal to 25. That's overweight. Whereas obesity is a BMI greater than 30. And what we do is we measure your weight and your height, and there's a calculation that we multiply it by certain things and divide it by certain things, and we come up with, if your figure is coming up under 25, you're okay. If your figure is coming up between 25 and 30, that is 25.9, 25 to 25.99, you're overweight. If your figure is coming up to 30 and above, and I've seen people with a BMI of 45 and 50, these persons are what we call morbidly obese. They're very obese. Now, there's a simple way in which you can also check. You could do what they call the tape test. Kamal, you know this? You take a tailor's tape or any kind of measuring tape that's flexible, and you put it around your waist at the level of your navel. And if it is 20 or less, then you're all right. If it's over 25, then you are, it's a problem. And if it's over 30, it's same sort of thing. So the BMI is an issue. And I'll double check on those with the circumvention. So the World Health Organization has, been looking at this because this is a major, major trend. I remember when growing up in England, I used to see pictures of television about starvation in India, starvation in Africa, and it has been said it's still occurring. But today, the issue of overeating is the big, big issue. And a big part of it is the type of food that people have been eating. If you have ever heard about ultra-processed food, food that has been adulterated, they're now putting artificial coloring in your food. Some of the preservative in your food has some strange effect. Some of the pesticides in your food also have strange effect. Some of the effects that they have is to be estrogen disruptors. Estrogen disruptors. And so not only can they be linked to cancer and other things, but being an estrogen disruptor, it's likely to lead to overweight. You understand? Because some of these artificial coloring, these pesticides, these artificial flavoring and so forth, many of them have turned out to be estrogen disruptors. And they have a way of, the way they interact with your endocrine system, I hate to use that word, but the way they interact with the system in your body that helps to control your metabolism and your weight is that they screw it up. They screw it up. And you could find yourself being overweight, or far worse, becoming obese, or even more serious, becoming morbidly obese. Now, this new information highlights the importance of not only preventing diabetes, but managing diabetes, managing obesity, diabetes, and all these other things at a very early stage in life, before it starts to become a crisis in your life, in your family's life, in your country, and in your part of the world. And we have to have a national plan on obesity here in St. Vincent. Not only must the plan help to reduce undernourishment, which we've done a good job. I think it's about 10, 15 years ago, St. Vincent was awarded a very important award for reducing undernourishment to less than 5%. It's down to about 2.7%, and that still exists, But the opposite to undernourishment I've been talking about is overweight and obesity. We have to have a plan to deal with that. Now, the core interventions that we must take is we must take action we must take actions to support healthy practices from day one of a child's life. That includes promoting breastfeeding. If you're a mom, if you're a dad, make sure your wife, the mother of your children, does some breastfeeding. If you are a lady, please engage in breastfeeding, right? And number two, regulations on the harmful marketing of foods and beverages to children. I don't think that you all realize, we treat our kids to sweets. You go into supermarket and the kid comes back with a package and we try to say, no, the kids start to cry. We give in and we buy that package, that colorful package, well promoted. Matter of fact, they put some of these things at a level, not high up where adults could see it, and they put it at a level where kids could see it if the kids are going. So if you're having a push cart, it's right at the eyesight of the push cart, and you will see these bright colors, yellow, red, orange, and so to attract the child, and the child will reach out and grab the packet because these sweets, foods, and so forth are geared, promoted, and studies have been done on this. You reach the kids will smile to the parents, will cry, will have tantrums until they get what is being promoted to them. And believe it or not, especially if that child has been looking at television or exposed in some way to these other things, man, it's left an indelible mark on their brain. They see it visually. So they see it. Also, the jingles and other things like that come out, these things are indelibly placed in your mind. So we need action to help with the harmful marketing of foods and beverages to children. School food in schools, and nutrition of the food in schools, right, should include initiatives to make sure that the sale of products at the tuck shop outside on trays, do not have high content of fat, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, salt, and that these things are not right in the dome out at the entrance of the school. That's what usually happens. These things are right at the entrance of the school, and the kids who saw the stuff in the supermarket and you said, no, you can't have it. They cry and you hold out. You say, no, I'm not. When they reach school now, oh boy, it's right at the entrance of the school. You drop them off, and if they have a few little change, you haven't seen them go in the classroom yet because you know cars are behind you. You come out, cars are behind you, blowing you. They won't move on, get to work. You let your kids out, they're in a safe zone. But boy, they have to go through people selling stuff. Now, in addition, we have to look at pricing of healthy foods. I was speaking to somebody today about this. Have you noticed that healthy foods are far more expensive than foods that are bad for you? I've never to understand that. The healthy rice is more expensive. Healthy flour, brown flour is more expensive. If you wanted a bottle of juice, sometimes they're sweetened a little bit too much too, but if you have a bottle of natural juice, it's far more expensive than to get something mixed up, a soda in a bottle. You know what I mean? Have you noticed that? And this is true in the States, in England, in the Caribbean, anywhere. Now, the pricing of food should be the opposite way. We should be encouraging healthy foods, irrespective of what might be the cost of making it. And I think that's a factor. Now, we have to put up nutrition and labeling, right? That people know this is ultra-processed food. This is food that has a high fructose corn syrup and all that. And there needs to be public education and awareness campaigns for healthy diets and exercise. Healthy diets and exercise. And there needs to be some standards that promote physical activity in schools, a minimum amount. You know, it's not that the kids are going to get sweaty and come home and, you know, but really the physical activities in a child's day. A child's going to be having most physical activity during the day. Yeah? Right? Rather than when they reach home, you know? So their physical activity is not in the morning before 8 o'clock, or when they reach home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, you've picked them up and so. It's going to get dark soon. Now, you should try and fit in some physical activity then, but most of the physical activity is taking place during the day. And, you know, there's a significant challenge in implementing some of these policies. But we have to really prevent obesity. We have to really prevent obesity. It's a serious issue. Now, remember what I was saying, that obesity is this BMI, this calculation that we could check your height and your weight, and the nurse will deal with it. You know, nurse will deal with it, but that figure of 25, between 20 and 25, right, is okay. 19, 18 is good. You don't want it down 14, 13, your BMI. That shows you may be undernourished. But in relation to between 25 and 30, that's overweight. And over 30 is a serious, serious concern. We'll take a little break here, come back, and we'll dig a little deeper into this.
People's Pharmacy, for all your pharmaceutical, skin and body care needs. Located on Grenville Street in Kingstown. They open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Call them today at 784-456-1170. People's Pharmacy also stock vitamins and supplements, personal care items, toiletries, children and adult pampers, and much, much more. And of course, get your prescriptions filled by a friendly and professional pharmacist. People's Pharmacy. Come in today and let us serve you.
Yes. Can we make another song?
Your health matters.
How much do you know about what makes up a healthy lifestyle?
Your health matters.
How do you define good nutrition?
Join Dr. Gerald Thompson, physician, specialist, and notable environmental conservationist, every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. here on WeFM 99.9. Your health matters. Ask Dr. Thompson any burning question you have related to health. Your health matters. Dr. Thompson will examine healthcare, highlight important environmental issues, and look at what's hot in science and technology and the next wave of emerging diseases and health trends. So this and every Wednesday, join us 8 to 9 p.m. here on WeFM 99.9 because your health matters.
Yes. Now, went back to the intro because I think Kamal had asked me a question about different body shapes. You know, there are people with different body shapes. There are persons who, let's talk about maybe the female, their body shape more pronounces their upper body, their breasts, their shoulders, and so on. Then there's what's considered to be like the hourglass shape. And then there are persons who might have their waist, in terms of their thighs, may be very much larger and so forth. Now, those are shapes, and certain cultures of the world, let's say in the female, the pelvis, the bone around your waist, your pelvic bone, can be shifted forward or could be shifted backward. Now, in many Black persons, the pelvis is shifted forward. That gives Black women sometimes a higher bottom and allows their abdomen to protrude just a little bit. In certain other cultures, their pelvis is shifted the other way so that they hardly have any bottom and that their stomach is virtually flat. These are very interesting things and could spark a lot of very negative debate. Now, when you are using this calculation called BMI to check if you are normal in weight, if you're overweight, or if you're obese, then that is important, because if you naturally have your body shape is producing, then we could say that it may suggest that you're overweight. But that ain't really so. These measurements, they are roughly in the same zone. If you're overweight, you're overweight. If you're obese, you're obese. Now, instead of doing a calculation that is checking somebody's weight and height and then multiplying it by this and multiplying it by that, we could take a tape and put it around your waist at your level of your navel, irrespective of your body shape, and we could get an idea. It's not probably as accurate as the BMI, but it gives us an idea. Now, it is said, and you may be a person who deal with inches, maybe a person who deal with centimeters, but in terms of your waist size, if your waist size is greater than 35 inches for women, you're overweight. If it is greater than 40 inches for men, you're overweight. Get that? Now, this same thing will be done in terms of centimeters. If you deal with centimeters, therefore, we look at centimeters. Now, let's go back to inches. 35, we say a person above 35, go to 40, or is overweight. But if it's over 40 for the female, therefore you're obese. In the case of the male, if it is 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, we say you're overweight. If it's over 45, we say you're obese. So we show a little difference between male and females. You know, males would have much larger waist. Now, on the other hand, if it's centimeters, when you have 88, 90 centimeters in women, you are obese. If you are 102 centimeters in men, you are obese. Now, I've spent a little time on this because it is important that you have an idea. Now, obesity comes as fat, mainly, is deposited in certain parts of your body. If you are lifting weights and toning muscles and your muscles get bigger, your weight may go up because your muscles are bigger, but we don't consider you to be overweight and obese because your muscles are bigger. So we tend to focus on a little bit of body shape because fat could be deposited in your breast or in your shoulders, your neck, right? underneath your arm, around there. That's a part of your body. The fat could also be deposited around your thighs or your buttocks, right? That's another thing. Now, the more serious form of fat being deposited is the fat that's inside your abdomen. The fat could be deposited inside the skin of your belly. That is in the skin of your belly. But when the fat is actually inside your abdomen, what we call abdominal obesity, or I like to call it VAT, visceral abdominal tissue, then that is a totally different scenario. The fat inside your belly, you could say, start to virtually take on a life of its own. You know, it starts to take on a life of its own in that it is able to secrete a number of different type of substances that help to promote inflammation, help to promote cancer, that affect your way your insulin and your diabetes is managed. And we tend to think that this is a serious concern. You know? Now, how did we get there? 1990 to 2025, 35 years, obesity has doubled in adults, tripled in kids. In some countries, as I mentioned to you, there's still some undernutrition, some lack of vitamins, some lack of certain minerals in the food, and so, but it's largely been overeaten. And around the world, 1 billion people, 1 in 8 people are now obese. Now, that means that in countries like North America, Canada, you know, there is a tremendous amount of obesity. Let me put it that way. You gotta already know a lot about this. Now, we have pointed out some of the ways that we have to really deal with this. And the important thing is that it is handled, it is treatable. If we have not already been dealing with our kids and the nutrition of our kids, which sends them on a journey towards obesity, if we haven't already done that, and your kids are now older, and you are now older, you have to also start at any point you can dealing with the whole subject of overweight and obesity. At the same time, we could help when it comes to medication. There's some medication that could help to reduce weight. It's best to do it naturally, but a lot of people have tried many type of diets, many type of exercise, and feel that sometimes they can't keep up with it. Part of obesity and overweight relates to our personal image of ourselves. It is said that obesity is linked to a lot of depression. Certain persons feel that their partner is no longer attracted to them, you know, because they may be overweight. Although in some cultures of the world, men and women love to have more plus size women. Kamala, are you a plus size man? Eh? Yeah, you look so bad. You look like a plus size man. You know what I mean? You can't say anything there. Don't say anything, man. This is trouble. This is trouble, you know. But in general, the amount of persons who have been trying to lose weight so that in the summer they could put on a bikini or lose weight to go on a vacation or lose weight to attend a wedding or become married themselves. You know, this is really fascinating. And obesity has had a lot of psychological effects. Now, besides the psychological effects, depression, and all these sort of things that come with it, the obesity is strongly linked to the incidence of high blood pressure. For every 10 pounds in weight that you have on, it may start to send up your blood pressure by a certain amount. And similarly, the loss of 10 pounds of weight in persons who are obese or overweight can reduce their blood pressure to managing levels. There's no doubt that obesity and overweight is linked to high blood pressure. The evidence too that obesity is linked to cancer is profound, you know, and it's definitely there, whether cancer, the breast, cancer, the prostate, many different types of cancer, cancer of the colon. A lot of them have found higher incidence in persons who are overweight. A link there that is important. But we have to tackle obesity still in a very diplomatic way. Because as I mentioned, those psychological effects, the way we talk to persons who may be overweight, people are very sensitive. We talk to people who are obese, and you can destroy their life. You could lose some really good friends by the way you talk. So some people feel you should have tough love. You should be a bull in a china shop and tell somebody like it is. But that's not always the best way. And trying to get somebody to start their exercise program, trying to get them to eat properly and so is very tough. You could help them, not by just telling them, but joining them and maybe incorporating somebody else who may also be overweight to come along, because persons who are overweight often feel uncomfortable going out walking, you know, with somebody who's thin or by themselves. And so being in link with somebody who is in a similar position, in addition to somebody these days, you know, who's going to protect you and make sure nobody's harassing you, all these things are important. There's nothing wrong with having an exercise bike at home or treadmill and step ladder. All these things will also help. But really, you have to burn calories. But burning calories is still a small part of the process. There's no doubt it adds to the profile. You have to start with what you're putting in. You have to start with what you're consuming. And oh boy, certain foods taste so damn good. Certain foods taste really good. We can't do without them. And we consume a tremendous amount of them. But I would say that there's nothing wrong with consuming the foods you like. It's the excess and the frequency. I could tell you for sure, in terms of sodas and certain sweet drinks, I have myself, I've been finding the pleasure of cold Vincentian water. Our water is clean. Our water is unadulterated. Our water is gravity fed, is cheap. Man, cold water in St. Vincent is a nice thing. You could go with a little bit of coconut water. That's fine. But cold water is great as a substitute for those sweet beverages, no matter how much you like them. And so we have to start reading labels. And today, most foods will have something on them in terms of the label, because these ultra processed foods are gonna get you. They've been tested for hundreds and thousands of people, or sometimes thousands of people. Ask them to do taste tests. How does this taste? How does that taste? You send them back and let them come back again. This one has a little bit more salt, and this one has a little bit more sugar. And they examine how people react and how people eat. The fiber in food is so essential. Fiber helps to reduce the absorption of sugar. The problem with fiber is that it doesn't last long. Fiber in food doesn't preserve well. It makes the food go off. And so that's why we eat natural things. When we eat natural things, we get in the natural fiber, and the fiber is good for the soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, all these things are good for us. But they, for many years, had been taking the fiber out of food to give it longer shelf life. Yeah, we want to know if we pick something off of a shelf and it says made in 2022, that's still good. If it's 2 years old, 3 years old, it's still. We love natural things, but sometimes you can't get the naturals. You want to make sure. I understand all that. But they've taken the fiber out of the foods, and they also took sometimes a lot of the fat out of foods. And fat helps to give the food a certain flavor and satisfy you and so. So you know what they did? They substituted those foods, they took out these things by putting in additional sugar. Sugar, sweetened it to make it really taste better. And surprisingly, you do a study with 100 people, you study with kids, they will pick the one that is sweetest. They'll pick the one that is sweetest. I've drunk some passion fruit juice that hasn't had any sugar, is natural, and so it tastes great. But sometimes the person who makes passion fruit juice and they've added a couple of extra spoonful of sugar, that passion fruit may end up tasting better to somebody who doesn't know. And when you take in all the sugar, let me tell you something. Depending on what I said, your level of activity, right? If the kid is having no activity in the morning, at school, there's no real great activity planned. We run up and down to the entrance to buy some chips, right? Or in the evening, it's tough. I mean, there's exercise just on weekends, walking to church or whatever isn't enough as exercise. Same thing with adults. And it's usually not enough. So there has to be a bigger strategy in relation to nutrition and the food you're putting into your mouth. Now, this evening, I haven't really gone into the real detailed causes of how obesity is formed. But I've said I've been trying to, from a broad point of view, signaling that it is becoming a crisis that undernutrition is becoming less. I mean, yes, during sulfur eruption, during volcanic eruption, during a hurricane, after hurricane, there will be a period where stuff is short. I suppose on Union Island, things are short. But we also have to be very careful of what we use. We got to still try our best to use natural things. I know a lot of our natural foods, the citrus and so, may be in a little decline. But the ultra processed foods that we're consuming today is killing us. The ultra processed foods we are consuming today is killing us. It's producing obesity. It's helping with obesity to induce high blood pressure and so. We're seeing alarming rates of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. We're seeing increasing incidence of cancer. And I point out, with obesity comes depression, becomes lack of social interaction because persons are not able to go out. You had a nice dress and you used to wear it. Now it's too small. And if you try to wear it, you know, I mean, I think around carnival time, a couple of persons who maybe well endowed, putting on some sizes that are 5, 6 sizes a little smaller than what they should have. I suppose that could be style. You know, some persons may like that. But Kamal,
Doc, you know what I think is happening? I think people they may not like, but they're starting to accept what it is, as in terms of they may put on a little size. They may not like it, but they come to the point where they accept it and say, well, it is just what it is.
You think that people are getting used to obesity and accepting it?
Well, the thing about it,
or they realizing that obesity is a problem and they want to do something about it?
No, well, this is the thing. They don't look at it as being obese. They just know they put on a little size because probably they ate. They need to exercise, but they can't get the time, or they just, I mean, they're not motivated to. They probably need. I mean, it's one thing to, let's just say you buy one of those bikes and you put it in your house to exercise, right? First week, you know, you're pedaling. Second week, and then after a while, you kind of lose the motivation to.
Well, I think that we have observed that healthy food is more expensive, and on people on budget, it may come across that they can't really. But I want to say to persons, you cannot give up. The reason why a stitch in time saves 9. Obesity is not just linked to rates of high blood pressure and obesity. It's also linked to heart disease, heart attacks. The average obese person will die of a heart attack. Let me put it that way. You know what I mean? But do you know the obesity, the impact on your bone health? Your bone health. Persons who are obese are going to end up having higher risk of fractures. And I don't want to use the term osteoporosis, a kind of a weakening of the bone, a leaching out of the bone. They will have problems very often with reproduction. If they are obese, they're much younger in life, there may be a risk that your chance of becoming pregnant and so is reduced. And then I've mentioned certain type of cancers, but obesity has a great profound impact on your quality of living. Not just in relation to, I've wondered if plus size clothes is more expensive than smaller clothes. I mean, imagine it would require more cloth. You know, If you're having it made by a tailor, definitely it'll require more time.
Yeah.
I don't know if those sizes bigger sizes are more expensive.
I don't know.
Yes, I don't know either.
I don't
I'm asking the question. But I know for men it is. For men it is. I've gone into some stores and you see where the big thing you like to be exploited. But the big thing, do you know, if you're obese, do you know what it's like sleeping with obesity? Especially if there's a lot of fat that's been accumulating around your throat or your chest, your lungs have a harder time breathing. You don't take as deep a breath through the exchange of air. So you like to be fatigued. You like it to be tired, And then what about moving, just walking around? What happened to walk up Mackey's Hill or walking from Forester's Corner in Kingston all the way down to the market or to the hospital? Is that possible? Well, the impact of obesity on breathing so is really profound and very, very tiring, very an inducer of fatigue. I brought all this up to really show that obesity is one of the big growing diseases. And we have to be very, very careful. When you, if you're obese, one of the first things we'll do, we'll double check to see if you don't have any kind of hormone imbalance. That could cause people to put on weight. Hormone imbalances, And that's one of the things where we talk about these estrogen disruptors, right? In food coloring, in pesticides, and all this other thing. And we got to be very, very careful about them, right? And it is certainly a big concern. I want to end by really reiterating that childhood obesity has tripled. Let me say that several times. It is big. And let me say, if I am an alcoholic and I drink rum, over a period of time, the rum can affect my liver and the inflammation that the alcohol causes, because the liver is trying to clean up the alcohol, but so much of it coming so often, it can't clean it up. So the liver becomes inflamed and eventually you develop something called cirrhosis of the liver. It's a bad disease, not nice. But guess what? Today, we are seeing 10-year-old children with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that could also lead to cirrhosis because of the sugar content that they're consuming, the high sugar content, high fructose corn syrup, and so. I want to say that this hours is not being possible to complete this whole program. But obesity, overweight, all these things are concerned. Let's start dealing with it. We can help you. Go see your physician. Start the program. Don't give up early. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bid you a very special good evening and good night.
People's Pharmacy, for all your pharmaceutical, skin and body care needs. Located